This is the Oakwyn Podcast, featuring Morgan Browne and Michael Uy.
Welcome to the Oakwyn Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Uy.
And I'm Morgan Browne.
And I'm the Podfather.
And we have a very special guest, one of the OGs at Oakwyn.
OG.
I know.
Emphasis on the old.
Right. Robin Bardon. Robin Bardon, thanks for coming.
Robin
Thanks
Bardon.
so much for having me.
Can we get some cool woo music in
I'll
the
put something
background?
in there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We'll do that in post.
That's right. We're starting the wave for Robin right now, actually.
We are so lucky to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
It's
been a bit of a struggle
it's been
to
a long
get on the show
time.
here.
Yeah.
I'm seeming to be
His
too busy, or
people,
you guys are too busy. Or I don't know.
Okay, give the viewers and the listeners like a quick little snap of you and your career. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Robin Bardon.
Like from day one.
Yeah, just tell me your
I
little.
was born here. No.
Well, I'm from Salt Spring Island.
Yes.
It's where I grew up, and I moved to Vancouver the ripe age of 17 to go to university. And then after university, moved around a bit, came back to Vancouver because that's where I wanted to be, but started my real estate career in Victoria before I came back here with the intention of moving my business to Vancouver. Nobody knows why I did that. Starting a business in real estate in one place and then going somewhere else is
as soon as
really
you get
backwards.
the traction and then
just takes off. I'm starting to do well. Let's abandon it. But ultimately, actually, it was the other way around. I was doing well in Victoria my first year, and then my second year was the financial crisis, and I did quite a lot worse than my first year. And then I was like, hey, if I'm going to be poor here, I might as well be poor where I actually want to live, and that's what brought me back to Vancouver. Where I started working at McDonald Realty.
Right.
And
you were so cute.
And that's actually where I met the lovely Morgan Browne.
Yeah.
We were both
what was your first impression of Morgan
Juniors.
when you first met her?
That's a tough
what was
one.
the first Morgan
don't.
Browne
You're
interaction?
making me blush a bit.
I was like, oh, she's kind of hot.
We might have to burp that out.
Bubbly.
Yes.
Cool.
Cool.
I was very impressed.
This is his story.
I was very impressed. Yeah. Morgan, just butt out. I was impressed with her career and how young she was, and how successful she was. When we were both working at McDonald Realty together, she was doing quite a lot more business than I was, and I was like, I got to make that work.
And you did.
And
you
it took
killed
some
it.
time though. I did a good amount of flying by the seat of my pants for the first few years. I did fine. But I sort of maintained. I got to an income range that I was reasonably content with to do the things that just to keep my life going, which was nice because when I started in Vancouver, I really had no money and a bunch of debt and struggled pretty hard for a couple of years.
You were like couch surfing, right?
Yeah, the first 6 months I had all of my worldly belongings packed into the back of my
Car.
my beige 1998 Toyota Camry.
Oh my gosh. That just totally gave me flashbacks of your time.
I mean, that $1,500 car was a gift from my late father to help me with my real estate career, so we will not speak ill of it. It served me well with its squeaky passenger side door. And
did it have the roll down windows?
I don't actually remember. I don't think so. No, it actually did have.
Okay,
it did have automatic
Oh,
windows.
you got the upgrade.
It was fancy. All my stuff was in there, and I stayed on a bunch of different friends' couches for I think what turned out to be about 8 months before I was comfortable enough with the cash flow that I had to just rent a place. And then my first rental was a pain. I ended up renting a place that had bed bugs crawling up the walls, and I had to move out at 1 o'clock in the morning after putting all my stuff out on the balcony.
Jeez.
It was not. Yeah, I hit some roadblocks. There were some hurdles to jump over, but
I'm just trying to remember if that was the time that Jay brought the bed bug into the office. Remember that?
Oh,
Was that the same time?
it was around the same time because I actually
McDonald,
collected
guess what?
some of the bed bugs and put them into a Ziploc bag so that I could prove to the landlord and be
show.
like,
Oh, really?
Yes.
I want my money back.
Jay brought a single bed bug.
No,
to the
he
office?
brought one in like a container.
Oh, what the
And
hell?
he brought it into our office, and we were like, "What are you doing?" And we were all, yeah, it was like at that time that was like the OG really good times at our office. We had some, and everyone was really focused on trying to make this career work. But
And we were so young.
let me tell you what I thought about Robin when he came in.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Because let's go the other way. So when he came in, I was like, who's this island kid? No, I thought, okay, this guy is extremely intelligent. He's super charismatic.
I'm blushing.
Yeah, you are.
You can't tell.
You're super charismatic. And
You always look a little
above
pink.
all, you're super honest. And I think that really has worked for you in your career. And you've literally just said what you thought of it, thought of the product, thought of the area, thought of the person, thought of the opponent, the other side, the competitor, really well and delivered it well. But you were so honest with it, and I think that is really rare in our business, right? I think
It's a sad thing to say out loud,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
so. You have always set the standard in the industry, in our location, and also like in the downtown core. That if you're going to work with Robin, he's going to get it done, but he's also going to do it really clean, super fast, and be honest throughout the whole process. So I think bravo on that. Still hasn't
Thank you.
changed.
That was honestly as little planning as I put into the beginning of my career. That was one of the things that I decided that I would have. I looked at a number of the different agents I worked with in my first firm, most of whom were fantastic, but some of whom were a little iffy. And I just thought like there's a lot of business to be had for lots and lots of agents. And you don't need to be dishonest. You don't need to be underhanded. You don't need to be super salesy and, to have a successful career. And I really focused on just integrity right from the start. I just wanted to be honest with people. And I'm like, if you don't like the price that I'm giving you for your property and somebody else tells you it's worth way more, but work with them. That's fine.
Yeah, so honest. So do you think that, okay, so me knowing you, your late father, he was a realtor. Do you think that that's the reason why you got into the industry? Like, what was the reason why you got into
Oh,
real
100%
estate?
it is the reason I got into the industry. His career was winding when I started. He probably hadn't really worked much for about a decade. And actually, my brother and I got licensed at the same time and partnered up with my dad for the first bit.
Right.
Ultimately asking him to retire shortly thereafter because he was, although he was a great mentor, he wasn't really working.
Right.
And which is fair enough. And we did get a few reasonable leads from him, but probably he would have admitted the same thing. He wasn't the most organized realtor throughout his career, and real estate was never really his focus. He did it. He earned enough money to take care of our family nicely, but he preferred charitable
passion.
pursuits. Yeah, his pursuits were always charitable. He was always trying to help people, which is incredibly admirable.
That's why I named you after Robin Hood, right?
Not Robin Hood. Actually,
Okay.
Robin Hopper.
Robin
who was
Hopper.
a famous potter from, I think, from the island.
Pothead or Potter?
Potter.
Oh, Potter. Ah, yes,
Although
yes.
there were plenty of those as
Oh,
well.
yeah, right. I know that pothead.
Okay, so you've started your career.
I was moving home from teaching English and traveling in Tokyo and around parts of Asia, and I wanted to go to law school. But I had a bunch of student loans, a bunch of debt, and I wanted to try and make a bit of money and at the same time learn about something that I thought would be important to my future because I knew that real estate investing was a great way to build wealth, and I hoped to one day be wealthy. So I got my real estate license, particularly at the time it was a pretty easy thing to do. I think I did it 2 hours a day at
3 months.
Starbucks in the morning.
Yeah,
over
it was
the
a lot
course of
easier
about
before. So
4.5
easy.
months.
Yeah.
And so I got my license, started practicing, and ultimately I had a great first year. My brother and I, mostly generating our own leads. We really just threw as much stuff at the wall as possible, and a good amount of it stuck. I think we did, in our first 6 months licensed, between the two of us, we did 24 deals.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
which is not bad.
6 months.
We pitched to like a listing agent and a developer to co-list the whole project with us, albeit a project of 3 units. And they accepted our offer. We built them a custom website and a whole bunch of stuff. The guy that was doing the project sales there was older and didn't have some of the new marketing tactics that we had, and the developer was impressed, and so was he, and we ended up selling. We pitched for just a 2-week co-list where like we can sell it all in 2 weeks, and it had been on the market for months. And we sold 2 out of 3. We had an accepted offer on the third one by the end of 2 weeks, but then it unfortunately collapsed.
Let me remember all this.
You had a lot of
totally.
you put a lot of sweat equity into that too, that listing, right?
We did 7-day-a-week open houses.
Exactly.
Yes.
I remember that.
We just made it our office. We sat in this like vacant 3-unit character conversion. It was super cute, but also on the corner of 2 busy streets. So we put like a 4x8 sign with our pictures on the roof, so that by the end of the 2 weeks, literally everybody in the city of Victoria knew that we were real estate agents. So it worked significantly to our advantage.
A really good trophy listing.
I would say our next 8 deals probably came out of people we picked up from those 7-day-a-week open houses.
There.
Right.
So it was a really good way to kick off our business.
Do you feel like so Nick is, maybe we can shout out to your bro in Victoria.
Nicholas Bardon with
Yes.
Coldwell Banker Oceanside
Yes.
in Victoria, British Columbia.
Yes, and he's still working there, right? Which is fantastic. And are you so now you started your career, and now where are you with your team right now?
So I actually, this was something I wanted to have a lunch with Michael and chat about, but I actually hit, I don't know if I'm going to be crass and say what it is, but when Michael first sat down with me when I was deciding whether or not to join this little 12-person at the top of a coffee shop, and Michael's pitch was good, and I accused him of pitching a little bit, and he was like, "Well, maybe I am. That is my job here." But at the same time, like, I really believe this and this and this, and they were good things that really stuck with me. But one of the things that I said to him was, I know that there are agents that make X number of dollars in this city. And I'm never going to be one of those agents because I don't want to have to work that hard. And Michael said, well, maybe you can become one of those agents in that salary range and not work as hard as they do, or not work as hard as it appears they do. And ultimately, the path to that is appropriately building a team and things like that. And I actually, I think just a couple of weeks ago, hit that number that I said to you in that meeting.
Oh, that's a
Can we talk about this? Can we talk about
That's
this?
amazing.
Cheers.
Top here. Good work.
Cheers,
I don't have any
cheers.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Which is very
Wow.
rare.
Cheers,
I was going to pick up Superflex, so I didn't have time. I was busy.
It's a bit early in the day. I mean,
It'll be cheers.
We're
today,
realtors.
happy hour.
judgment-free pod.
Yeah. It's 8:00 at night.
Wow.
Right. That's when we're recording.
Yeah.
I don't
There's no
know.
timestamp on this.
I don't know what.
That's why I don't put windows in here.
Yeah, that's probably a good call.
Right.
I feel like that is. Are you really now that you've hit that number?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've really Do you feel?
I mean, I think like a lot of people, I know where you're going. I think like a lot of
Yes.
people say the better you do, the more success you attain, the more you want. And there is certainly truth to that. Although particularly in the last couple of years, 3 years ago, I had a daughter and this year I had a son. And family has brought a little bit of new perspective to me. And that is that although I really do enjoy my career and my job, and I still love spending lots and lots of time at my office and with my colleagues and with my team and with my clients, I also really love to spend time with my family. And part of
That's not what you were saying before
part of
this.
the reason why.
Kidding.
Well, now that we're on the air, Mike.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why I started to build a team was so that I can help other people attain success, so that I can do some delegation, and so that I can free up some time for me to be able to build my business bigger and at the same time have more time for myself and my family.
So who do you have? Who do you have right now?
So I have my my office manager and the logistics person, Kaylee, who has been absolutely fantastic and has been with me for on and off 3 years.
Let's just say 3 solid, okay?
Well, we'll call it that, yeah.
We'll call it that.
And really the backbone of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently, I brought on Liam Zahara, who is an experienced agent and also an island boy, I might add. Grew up on Bowen Island.
Bowen?
Yeah, I think when he said
My
that
favorite.
in the meeting, I was like,
Okay, we're going to work. Yeah, we're gonna...
and he's been fantastic, and he's having a real breakout year this year, which is awesome. Really impressive to see, and he's working really hard, which is fantastic. And then even more recently, brought on Jason Wong, who is a pretty brand new agent. I believe he was licensed in June. Just finished his post licensing, but just so much potential. He's been in the real estate industry for over a decade in property management,
Right.
On I think 2 side strata management as well as rental management. So really good background, really good knowledge of how a lot of the things work, and just
That's a team.
And also a spectacular work ethic. Like that's what drew me to approach him. Because he didn't approach me or apply for a position or anything. I went and talked to him just because Kaylee had said, this guy keeps calling on us and asking us for open houses. And every time he does an open house for us, he sends like this great report of like everything
beautiful?
that's gone on.
Wow.
And like he does amazing social media posts while he's in there, like walkthroughs where he does like picture in picture. He's showing the stuff and then his face is on it and he's talking through it. And
he's very creative.
Very consistent,
very
does
creative.
it all. And I was just like, okay. That is the type of person I want on my team too. And then after having a couple of good conversations with him, we came to an agreement and he came on board as well. So it's been fantastic. I recently, this is always the big test. I recently went away with my family for a couple of weeks to Greece, which was fantastic. It was so beautiful.
So beautiful.
So beautiful. However, exhausting. I think our travel on the way there was about 25 hours, not door to door. That was
with
like
2 young kids.
Door to door was
hard.
30 hours with a 5-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. Anyway, I
just did it with Quinn. I can't even think about
bags under my eyes.
That's right. Yeah. I know a lot more.
I can't even think about that. It's so intense.
I'll say totally worth it to travel with kids. When you get there, the jet lag and reprogramming your children to a new time zone is not so bad because you're on holiday and you're like, we wake up at 2:00 in the morning, it doesn't matter.
Right.
We can do what we want. But when you get home and you're back to reality and managing your team and your life and taking kids to school and whatever else, managing the jet lag on that side's not as much fun.
I just can't believe, like, if I were to think about the Robin Bardon that walked through that office with a suit, I remember you came in with a suit every single day.
The same suit.
Sometimes.
Maybe.
Sometimes. And I was like, you were out late. To, having an incredible family and a beautiful wife who is a force to be reckoned with, as you are too. And just now really like creating your reality.
I'm shocked she actually agreed to date you and then marry you.
I think a lot of people are.
She's so amazing.
I think I tangented a little bit. I was saying the big test going away to Greece was how things would go with my team. And it went really well. They handled things really well.
Cool.
I did manage from afar a bit, but ultimately things went quite smoothly.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed. And I'm looking forward to being more and more comfortable as time goes on, just knowing that everybody's up to speed on everything.
Yeah. So tell us about that progression and kind of what you were thinking and how you planned kind of to start building that team, going from a solo agent to that to where what you're doing now. How many ends have you done this year?
I think today we're at 63 or 64.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Which is
that's top.
It's
that's
a best for me.
That's the best.
Right.
Yeah.
And the year isn't over yet.
Yeah.
I'm like burning up. I'm so excited for you. I get like all like pumped,
I'm
hearing
pretty
about
excited
success.
Too.
Especially Robin's success.
I mean, I don't think I've had dollar-wise, I haven't had a year that's been worse than the previous year since I started with Oakwyn in 2013. I've only gone up. All Michael.
No.
Morgan, I guess.
It's all you, my dear.
And
I want to know how.
I've had some years where I did slightly less deals, but never by much. And I think last year was my best year at around 44 deals, and now I'm nearly 30% above that, which is
That's amazing.
a pretty crazy year over year. So I'm excited because I feel like, I mean, the more deals you do in real estate, the more deals you do, as long as you manage your database well.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us about that progression. So when did you, so going from a solo agent, how long were you a solo agent for?
In Vancouver.
That's
Started
a great
Vancouver.
question. I guess. Oh, well, it's solo agent in Vancouver. Okay, so I came to Vancouver in 2010, so 3 years, I think, because I think 2014 was the first time I hired an assistant that Michael told me I should fire the following day. And it wasn't her. He was like, not because she's not good. It's because you're not good.
Yeah. You're not trying to.
That was a fun story.
I mean, it was a good lesson.
Yeah, let's share a little bit of what happened.
Well, on my assistant's first day, she was pretty green, didn't have any experience in the real estate industry. She came to the office at 9:00 in the morning, a little bit unsure as to what to do. And I came at 10 in my gym clothes. And Mike was like, okay, so at the end of the day, he's like, you've started this so much on the wrong foot that you should probably just start fresh. He's like, when you show up an hour later than your staff does that has nothing to do and you're like sweaty and in your gym clothes. That's actually neat too. That was back when I used to go to the gym.
Right.
Oh, that's so funny.
Anyway, so ultimately I did not fire her the next day. But it was determined later on that it probably wasn't the industry for her, and she moved on to much bigger and better things, which is great.
Awesome.
But I think that was 2014, and that was the first time I brought on somebody for help. And unfortunately, at the time, I did it kind of out of panic more than out of planning, because I was very busy, and I was like, oh my God, I've got more than I can handle, which is a fantastic problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. And then in that panic, I hired somebody without any time to train them, didn't allot any time to do that, and ultimately didn't utilize them very well. So I wasn't really getting good value out of it. And probably it was slowing me down more than it was helping me, which is a tough part of starting a team. That progression of starting a team, the beginning part of it is
the learning curve.
Morgan can attest to this as well. We all can. Is you have to invest a lot of time into your team, training your team, getting them up to speed, and getting yourself into a headspace where you can let go of control and trust them.
And lead.
Lead and delegate appropriately and not micromanage, so that it is indeed helping you, so that it is indeed freeing up time and giving you more time to do the things that are sort of higher skilled, more experience-based tasks in real estate. There are a lot of jobs in real estate. We wear a million hats.
Right.
A lot of them can be done by people with less experience in real estate. And then the hardest parts of our job are things that we should be focusing on as team leaders. But it's hard to let go of that other stuff. Even just for, particularly when you're a newer agent that's still really growing, and it's exciting to be busy. Even when that busyness is simpler, more menial tasks.
Right.
Like being like, oh, I had to work from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. yesterday. But then when you think about the fact that like only 1 hour of it was like really good experienced real estate work, and the rest of it was like dropping off keys and meeting a photographer at a door and
inspection
and like
or
data entry into your database or sitting for 3 hours through a property inspection, things that you don't necessarily really need to be there for, and that somebody else could handle for you.
Right.
Is there a time, like where did
what was
you
what was the marker?
Yeah, where was the marker? We're in the same headspace. Where's the marker is when you got the new assistant or the new team person on Robin Bardon?
What do you mean, like the marker is when I sort of saw the value, or when I decided to?
When you decide to add the individual to your team?
I think just when I realized that I probably, the rate that I was growing my business, I was running out of time.
Okay.
And I thought, I think the main thing to me is I've always wanted to make sure that I can give exactly the same great service to every client.
Right.
And when I feel strained and like like there's a potential for me to drop the ball on something, or I am dropping the ball on something, I just, that's something I wasn't able to tolerate. So I was like, okay, I need help right away. And that was part of the reason why I sort of panic hired my first assistant, because I was getting behind on things that were important. And
this is a good mark for people, because I think a lot of people don't realize that you can kind of make those markers in your own self.
But
I actually
better is to do it before you get behind.
Yeah.
Because I ended up, just a personal note, I ended up getting bad criticism from my very good client saying, you missed this. You missed the ball on this. This is not you. And at that point I realized, shit, I need to go figure this out right away.
Right.
And I need to go add another assistant or add another buyer's agent or whatever it is. With yourself, you kind of picked up that you were losing touch with a lot of these clients, or you weren't spending your time really efficiently kind of with them. Was there a marker with you, Mike? Was there a number that you're like, okay, these are 30 deals?
People look at, people look at it in a couple different ways. And Robin and I, what's been really awesome is to, be friends with Robin for so long, and to see like his evolution and how his life has changed.
When he met me, I was like hunched over and hairy, and I dragged my knuckles on the ground.
Yeah, like a Homo habilis. He was a Neanderthal.
Come on, I was like at least a Homo erectus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, he was in that. He was in that phase of evolution. But and then just to see us being able to grow together, and it's one of my favorite stories, and some of my favorite memories professionally is like working alongside Robin in our wall-less office.
That was a good time.
And
it was a cool place to work. It was so different at the time.
It was so different. Just hanging out. Me, Morgan, and Robin, and a few of the other
Ashley,
the OG agents.
Arlene and I on either side of the photocopier.
Exactly.
Yeah, Arlene.
Yeah, because we didn't have any.
Graydon.
Yeah, we didn't have any walls in the office. And then Robin had a dedicated desk. We didn't have offices then. We just had desks, and his office desk was right beside our makeshift boardroom that we had,
which I forced.
So he would listen in on all our,
That's how I got most of my clients at the beginning. Is I just poached by listening in the boardroom.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that boardroom was so funny. You couldn't even go around it because the boardroom was so thin, because Mike made it the wall so thin. And I was like, this is not a boardroom.
Yeah.
Anyway. So funny.
Yeah, and just to see the evolution and the growth, and I remember my first meeting with Robin. It was just I was very nervous, actually. I don't know if you could pick that up, because I hadn't met a lot of
cool agents,
agents,
downtown
young agents, and it was actually
cool agents.
Morgan,
adorable.
I think Robin was agent number 12 or something like that.
It was 12 or 14.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Basically, I came over and I was like, "You're coming with me. I'm bored."
Yeah. Right. So
hurtful.
Yeah.
No, you guys everyone that. Robin, you came over at the perfect time for your career. I think it was a next thing to kind of
what was that thought
energize
process? Because obviously working at McDonald's, which is like a super established big company for many years, and then to this brand new brokerage that just got started.
It's called a startup.
Yeah, startup. What was that process thoughts for you?
I would say I had sort of stagnated in my career, I think. For about 3 years, I sort of plus or minus $10,000 or $20,000 made about the same amount, which might sound silly to some people, because plus or minus $20,000 means a lot.
Yes.
But in real estate, that can just be the difference of one extra client a year or one less client a year. So I'd sort of been hovering in the same income range, the same number of deals, plus or minus a couple. And although I felt like I was gaining consistency, I wasn't as concerned about where my next paycheck, where my next client, where my next dollar would come from. I was kind of spinning my wheels. And it was because I treated my real estate career like a job, and I didn't treat it like a business, which it of course is. You're self-employed, running your own business. It's a small business.
Big note for everybody.
And that was a turning point. And actually, the first person to tell me that was Michael. In that meeting, he said, I think he said, you're really good at I don't remember the exact wording, but it was like it was probably more eloquent than this is going to sound. But,
Right.
but he said, you're really good at being a realtor, and you're really good at doing your job, but you're terrible at running your business.
Mhm.
Blunt, Mike.
Essentially. But I mean, he also followed that up with like, you could triple the amount you're making in a year if you started putting systems in
Yes.
place and
Mhm.
treating
Yes.
this like a business. And that really clicked with me as like treating it like a business. And it's like, what do you do when you earn money in a business? You invest more money back into it. You try and grow it.
Mhm.
If you're a restaurant chain, you try and pick up another franchise or whatever it happens to be, right? But in real estate, I'd been just very focused on the day to day, and didn't think about how I could grow it for the future. So, anyways, that was to make a short story long. I, having had that conversation and actually sitting down and analyzing my business, where do my leads come from? Where do my sales come from? How do I get there? And although I didn't have a ton of data to work off at that point, I had a decent amount because that was one of the things I was more organized with, was my marketing and tracking my marketing, but I didn't actually do anything with the tracking.
Right.
It was there. I tracked it, but then I never analyzed it and used that information to further my business. So when I sat down and did that, I'm pretty sure I did double my income the first year, not triple.
Mhm.
You doubled it, the first full year.
Yeah.
And then that gave you a lot of confidence in the next year. I remember this so much.
Yeah,
It was like a huge change.
I improved my income probably by nearly 6 digits a year for a number of years straight.
Yeah.
Which is
It's life-changing.
certainly something to be said, and life-changing indeed. Yeah.
Oh
That's
my
really cool. I
God.
remember when I first met Robin, and then I think I introduced you to Arlene as well, and we talked about it. Arlene and I talk all the time, and we're like, Arlene was like, I think Robin is smarter than both of us. And I was like, yeah, I think he's a lot smarter. Like, oh, we better make this brokerage good, or else he's gonna figure us out.
Figure you
No.
the scheme that you were running.
Exactly.
Actually, a big part of it was Arlene.
Arlene never said that.
No,
No,
Arlene,
no, she
Arlene
did.
actually said that.
Yeah.
Arlene said that to me. She's like, I have to be a better managing broker for people like Robin.
Robin, yeah.
That's what she said to me too.
That's very
Yeah.
When you
flattering.
first started, it was
Yeah.
like, because you were asking all these
I'm
like
not good
really
with
good
compliments.
questions.
I'm just going to sit here awkwardly.
All right, I'll keep making fun of you then.
I'm much more comfortable with that.
Right.
So how do you feel? Okay, so first of all, like a lot of new agents that come on board, some agents that are really trying to level up their business that listen to this podcast, what is one piece of advice that, other than turning your career into a business, what's one that really resonates with you that you think about regularly?
I mean, I think just continued tracking of your business and analysis of your business.
Great.
When you're very new, try everything. There are a ton of established things you can do as a real estate agent out there that we know work. Some of them you're going to look at and be like, oh, this is so old school and weird. Why do agents still door knock? Do people even want you at their door? You'd be surprised how many do. But is door knocking for everybody? No. I tried door knocking so many times and I abhor it. It's like I will literally make any excuse. I tried partnering with another agent, so I had this accountability, and it's like, okay, we made an appointment 2:00 on Thursday afternoon. It's going to be sunny. Let's go bang on some doors in Kits or East Van or whatever it happens to be, and I would find any reason. I would like legitimately intentionally book a photo shoot for a listing at that time so that I could be like, oh, sorry, it's the only time the photographer could do it. I can't make it again because I hated it. I don't know why. I'm a people person. I like people, but I didn't like
Door knocking.
So I tried it. It's not something that works for me, but it works for a lot of people. And even from my short stints of door knocking, I actually ended up getting like a listing years later. Because they remembered me. So it really does work.
Yeah.
But try a lot of things and find the things that you can and will do consistently, because that consistency is the most important thing. Put systems in place that you can and will do consistently. because
Oh, did you
that
hear
is
that?
the key.
Right.
I hope everyone say that one more time for people to hear.
Put systems in place that you can and will do consistently.
That is so hilarious coming from you because
Yeah.
when I met you, you're like just like rolling around in your gym clothes.
But I think
Ripping around in my 98
Yeah,
Camry.
exactly.
One of the things with
that's
that-
awesome.
that
That's
can
maturity, people.
consistency can only happen if it becomes less of something that you love to do. And that's what I think you are really good at marketing. You're really good at talking to people. You put those things into place. And what Robin is saying, I think to a point, is don't just go for stuff that people are telling you to do. Figure out what you like to do and then consistently hit it.
And
Yeah, exactly.
you talked about tracking. So how are you tracking your business, and
Yes.
like how often are you doing that? Like what's the process for somebody?
I track my business every deal.
Okay.
I track a pipeline of sort of leads that are A, B, and
you
C
do that
level.
through a whiteboard or through that?
I'm pretty old school, so yeah. Look,
Yeah, I know.
mean,
Robin's whiteboard.
I've been paying for a good CRM or client management software for years. I still do. I've got all my clients in it, and
Yeah.
I look at it. Never. But what do I look at? Like my Excel spreadsheet. Jay McInnes will love this because he's an Excel spreadsheet
Me too.
guy.
Yeah.
My Excel spreadsheet and my like printouts of an Excel that I like
Yes.
put check marks on.
Yes.
And my whiteboard. And I think I'm a visual person. Maybe if I like set like a big screen in my office that always had my CRM on it,
Right.
that might work better. But I've been doing this for so long now, and it's working.
Yeah.
It
It's
probably
working.
could be more
Yeah.
efficient, but it's working. So I'm good with it at this point. I don't know. I lost my
figure
train
out
of thought of it.
what's like, Mike, you use a notebook,
Yeah.
right? So like people that there's no right way, figure out your way.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I track. When I do a deal, I track exactly where it came from.
Mhm.
Was it a referral from an existing client? Was it a referral from a mortgage broker? Was it somebody that I picked up at an open house? Or was it somebody that called me off one of my paper mailouts? Was it somebody that contacted me exclusively through my website or Instagram ad or something like that?
Cold, yeah.
And then I keep track of all of that all the way throughout the year. And then take a look at it at the end of each year. If it's something that I've been consistently relying on, Morgan and Michael know that a good chunk of my business early on came from open houses, which I do a lot less of now. And then shifted a lot into paper mailouts, which is super old school. And although I'm now officially old, I'm not that old.
Well,
You are middle-aged.
God, Mike. Ugh. I know, but still, it's gross to hear. So it's when I see that tracking upward or tracking downward, I find out why. I determine, was there inconsistencies in my my paper mailing this year? Is there a reason why it was 13% of my business this year and 20% last year or something like that? And I adjust based on that. I reevaluate. I look and I go, okay, so I'm mailing these 15 buildings in these 4 neighborhoods, and this one building I've mailed for 5 straight years and I've never gotten a single call from it. Maybe it's time to
let it go.
Right.
let it go.
Yeah.
And I mean, consistency is important. Patience is important with marketing like that, but also knowing when to just be like, okay, let's move this somewhere that's going to be more successful for
Yes.
me.
Yes.
And find out the reasons why things are more successful. Marketing in an area that you've already starting a new farm or marketing campaign in an area where you've already done business, you're automatically going to be more successful. And if you've never done a deal in an area and you're trying to pitch that area, it makes it much more difficult. And I did that a bunch, and then I learned that sometimes the best place, if a deal falls in your lap, start marketing from where that deal came from.
Right.
And you're automatically going to get more traction than this other place that you might be approaching that you've never done business in. Even if you prefer to do business there, sometimes it's not necessarily entirely about your preference. Although if you like the area and like doing business there, it will help you. People will see that.
Yeah. Totally. So if we could ask transparently, so what percentage of your revenue do you spend on these mail outs, or do you have a certain figure? Are you trying to get a rate of return? Like, what's your kind of targets for when you're doing your mail outs?
I'm pretty content with my growth right now. So I'm not really increasing my over the past year and a bit. I haven't really increased the number of mailouts I've done, except to service my team.
Sure.
So I've added farms in the areas that my team, individual team members, want to be building business. But my own, I've just kind of left as is. My paper mailing probably makes between 17 and 20% of my income. Might be a little bit lower this year. But
a lot of it's
and then
referral.
Most of the rest of it is some degree of referral. So it's either from my circle, from my clients, from a broker, an agent, or friend, or somebody who's referring me new business, or do a repeat customer. So that's sort of kind of grouped into one, but also should be tracked separately. Do you give, because I know you do a lot in referral. Do you give some sort of referral back, or do you have, like, I know a lot of agents are like, how do you get these referrals? Like, are you giving them like a referral on behavior? Or are you giving something on, that's
are you
a
giving
really
nothing
good question.
to Robin's?
Hold on. Mike, what was your question again? I don't think I got to the end of it.
So you're 17 to 20% of your gross revenues,
Right,
and what's your cost?
So it's not
that?
that's not my gross revenue.
Okay.
Or 17 to 20% of my gross revenue comes from we'll call it paper mail,
right?
Because that's the one we were talking about.
Yeah.
And what do I spend on it? I mean, I probably spend about $40,000 a year,
right?
Plus or minus,
depending
on how consistent I am. Because even though I have great systems in place, sometimes my whole team gets busy and we miss something, or maybe we're about to send a mail out and I'm also about to go on a vacation, and that mail out hits the ground 2 weeks from then, and then you need to answer all those calls, because 9 out of 10 times they're only going to call you once, and then they're going to call the next guy in line whose marketing is not as pretty to them. So then they call Mike, and
and then I pick it up right away.
He gets the listing because he's not on vacation. So sometimes when I'm like about to go away, I delay my mail out.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I feel some tension in there.
Yeah. Well, Robin, this is one of the great things about being a part of our community, is that everyone's so open and just open to share. Like, Robin taught me about how to do flyers, actually, like when
I remember Mike saying, like, when I much earlier on, I showed him the models that I've been doing, and he's like, you seem to be getting good success with these. Like, can I use some of your templates? And I was like, yeah, of course. We're a sharing firm. Let's do this. And then, like, the next year, I think he said something along the lines of, oh yeah, so I tried that in one little area and I made like $100,000. And I was like, right. Perfect.
Well,
and I didn't.
Well, I think it's, it just goes to show, you're just sharing, and then it reinforces your behaviors and stuff like that too. And I learned a great deal from Robin, and we were both kind of, everyone at the office is so open to sharing and being, and kind of looking at it from that perspective. So yeah, he's totally right about this.
It's certainly was an environment that fostered people collaborating and people sharing good ideas, instead of being like, I've got this good idea, I'm going to hide it and it's going to be all mine.
Right.
It goes back to what I said a lot earlier in the show. It's that there's a lot of business out there, and there's arguably too many agents in the Lower Mainland, but there's still enough business for a great percentage of them to be very successful. And you don't have to do that by stealing other people's business or by hiding your good ideas. You can share those good ideas, and they're still going to work for you. Even if Michael's getting up in my farm with the template that I mailed to him, we still are both going to do fun. And ultimately it's been fun because
his are black and white. Yours are colors.
I pay for the color.
I know.
I don't.
But I mean, we've done some co-lists and situations like that where we've been competing, and that makes it kind of fun.
Yeah, it is totally fun for sure.
Morgan, what did you ask me now? Sorry, I interrupted you.
What referral? Are you giving referral gifts out to your clients?
I mean, one of the main things that was something that I gave a lot of thought to earlier on when referrals started being a real thing for me.
Yes.
When your client list is 8 people long, it's harder to get referrals. And what I thought was, I want to just be the agent that does such a good job for people that they remember and want to send me referrals based on merit. And when people were like, well, I know this agent that'll write me a check for $1,000 if I send him a referral. And I was like, well, I don't want to buy business. I want people to give me business based on merit. Now, that being said, rewarding good behavior is also advantageous.
Right.
So yes, I do generally give referral gifts. Usually if somebody sends me a lead, I send them a thank you card and something nice, like a small gift card, a token, like a $25 gift card to the liquor store or Starbucks, or depending on who the person is.
I'm way more generous, people. Just so you know, you can refer them to me.
This is what you call buying business. And then
way more generous.
If I close that lead, I generally send something more generous.
Yes, you
like
do.
Morgan Browne.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I am saying that because if you go by Robin's office, there are these beautiful packages that get sent out. And I think you give a lot to your clients. I want to make that note to realtors that are listening, that it's not just about taking and
there's
providing.
a significant budget for that.
Yes,
this year will be an interesting one to look back and see what that budget looks like, because I've been watching it on my credit card, because
Me too.
Admittedly, my office manager handles a lot of the logistics of sending out client gifts. Although I'm in the decision-making process, I'm not in the logistical side of it. But then I do get to see my credit card bill.
Yeah, right. Faint every day, every month.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yes.
Me,
I try to smile and think, I got lots of Avion points.
Okay, yeah. I'm traveling with using these points.
Yeah.
So good. But that's great. I think that's a good way of giving back for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned a big way of you getting started was doing these open houses. So let's talk about some tips while you're in open, or maybe a story of you.
Yeah, give me
at
a
an
story.
open and kind of like
Okay,
picking someone up.
I will start with a couple of tips, and then I'll tell a fun story.
Sure.
So tips, I would say, I mean, I'm very much a people person. I like talking to people. I don't find it difficult to make small talk and turn that small talk into something more interesting than how's the weather. That's not easy for everybody, but open houses are a great way to practice, because you don't really have much to lose. Like if somebody walks out of that open house being like, that agent was a tool, they couldn't put a sentence together, it's not much different than them walking out of the open house and being like, that agent didn't talk to me at all.
Right.
Either way, they're probably not going to work with you. So why not practice?
Yeah.
And open houses, particularly in a busy market, you get lots of people coming through, lots of opportunity to talk to different personality types,
Right.
and to test out what you are comfortable with. So tips wise, I found there are a lot of people that are like, hey, get a sign-in list, and then you get this big list of emails and things like that. And obviously there's some privacy issues surrounding that have become more
Right.
prominent recently. But I always said, talk to everybody that comes in and rapidly determine if there's somebody that you think you can mesh with.
So you're really
and
qualifying.
Then focus your time on that person. Don't ignore everybody else after that. Give them the information they need, answer their questions, but build rapport with that person. Because if you can walk away from every open house with one good lead, you're going to be an extremely successful agent.
Right. Yes.
And I mean, you're going to have opens where you don't, but that's where the tracking comes in. Then you can work out how many open houses you need to get a deal done. But find a person and ask enough relatively broad questions until you find something that you have in common, and people will appreciate that. Maybe you've got young kids and they've got young kids, or you love to golf and they love to golf, or they like talking about the stock market and you do, or anything, right? Just find some little thing that you have in common and then build a bit of rapport with them. Hopefully before you spend an hour doing this, you'll have determined that they don't have an agent that they're already working with. Otherwise it'll be a really sad story at the end. But you ask a few quick qualifying questions to begin with, and those are the questions where you determine whether this is the person that you're going to focus your time on. And try and build that one good lead or those two good potentials from each open house.
Right.
Someone told me a long time ago, show who you are to the other person within that short period of time that you have.
Yeah.
Right. So like being able to, you do that really well. You're like uber good at like just small chat though. Like I think people need to realize Robin is like, I'll sip at the bar and just like make 5 friends really quick. So you're saying that when you're in the open, you really just like, even if people that don't have that confidence.
But I mean, also, if you don't necessarily have the confidence, know your product.
There you go.
Knowing your product is great. Like when I was brand new and I had more time than anything else, and had my office and my home in downtown Vancouver, on days where I had nothing else to do, I walked up and down the streets of Yaletown and I took pictures of all the buildings and I built files and like almost not flashcards, but something
Building
similar.
modules, yeah.
So that I knew every building. I knew who built it, who the developer was, who the builder was, when it was built. I memorized some of the floor plans that when I got lead calls, they'd be like, oh yeah, my unit faces south. I'm like, oh, so is that an 03 unit? And they're like, oh yeah, 1203. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you're looking out at X building and the corner of the stadium or whatever it happened to be. And they'd immediately be like, oh my God, this guy knows this building inside
This guy
out.
knows Yaletown Park.
I should live.
This guy knows Yaletown Park.
Maybe that's and then but automatically right on the phone, then you've convinced somebody that you're an expert,
Right.
in like 2 sentences. So know your product and go into an open house like that too. Know the area that you're in and study it, and you will be able to be successful in that area.
Give us that story. We want to know the story.
I mean, story wise, also, I would say don't be afraid to chase a lead hard. I know I had a very busy open house at Yaletown Park a number of years ago, and I remember a guy coming in, and I kind of briefly chatted with him, and he was not an extrovert like me, so you kind of had to pull a little bit more information out of him. But it was busy, and I was talking to a lot of people, and I think I'd kind of zeroed in on somebody else. But he mentioned that he was an owner in the building, and that he was looking for a place. I don't think I'd actually even gotten to the fact that he was looking for a place. He just mentioned that he was an owner in the building. And I think I had gotten to what floor are you on? And he had said 7. We'll say. I don't remember. We'll call it 7. Anyway, so I probably forgot about it in the moment, dealt with a million other people. And then the next day when I was following up, I thought, oh, what about that guy? He owned in the building. I list properties in this building. He said he was on the 7th floor, and I remembered he said his name was, we're going to call him Joe. You know who you are, Joe. So I was like, you know what? I went to the title database and I pulled all the titles for the 7th floor units, and I found the guy named Joe, and I wrote him a letter. And I said, hey, I met you in the open house. It was really nice to chat with you. I'm sorry I was very busy. I didn't get a lot of time to get into it with you. But I know that you said you were thinking about selling your place in the building. I do a lot of business in this building. And although he'd probably received my marketing because I marketed the building, this was a personal letter about a personal experience. And it resonated with him. He called me and he ended up selling his unit in the building, buying another unit in the building that I then later sold. And he's bought a condo for 1.6 now and another one. So I've done like 6 deals with him over the years. And he's referred me clients. So just
bless his heart, Joe.
Because
Joe,
you're the best, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Because I just like had this vague memory and took the time to think a little bit outside the box. I spent some money, pulling titles isn't that expensive, $15 each. But at the time, that was something that I would think about in the budget. And pulled all the titles for the units on the floor and then just wrote him an old-fashioned letter and sent it in the mail with a stamp. And then he called me. And it wasn't even a listing presentation at that point. I just showed up and he was happy to do business with somebody that, took that kind of time.
That's awesome. So because that's a thing that a lot of agents, kind of a misnomer for a lot of agents. They think that you can only find buyer leads at open houses, but you've proven.
Oh, I knew that that's what I thought for years.
Yeah.
And I legitimately only got buyer leads. That was probably one of the first, I sought out buyer leads. I never asked people if they owned a home. I just asked them what they were looking for.
Right. So what was the shift there?
And I mean, honestly, I think probably confidence and comfort level. I think I felt like it was easier to approach an unrepresented buyer.
Sure.
I felt like if somebody had already bought a property that, maybe they already had an agent. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't think there's good logic behind it. I'm a reasonably intelligent person. I probably should have thought about it a lot sooner than I did.
This is a very good point. I think people go into these open houses and they say, hey, I'm just going to find like 10 buyers and I'm going to go tour them all. But what you have to think about when you go to open houses is that for that 2-hour block, you are literally on stand for all of the people in the building to watch you do what you do best in case they want to list.
Right.
And I've always
It's
kind
an
of thought
audition.
that too. It's an audition.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, and so I don't know how many times, like, because I do townhouses downtown, where they were like, "Hey, we saw you at the downtown," and it's like this common conversation, and that's how you get those clients.
Right.
So just keeping that in mind is super key. But there are really good buyers out there too to pick up.
A buyer and a seller are equally valuable.
Equally, yeah.
It's just a matter of you need to deal with both.
Yeah.
And if you focus too hard on one, it's to your own detriment.
Mhm.
And 75% of buyers are also sellers at the same time.
Right.
But I found myself targeting people that were first-time buyers that were buying, which is great. And first-time buyers are fantastic. And I love seeing people get into the real estate
You've seen
market.
them evolve, and
I love watching them evolve
Fantastic.
throughout my career. But if I had been asking that question from very early on, like not just what are you looking for, but where are you living now? And then instead of stopping it at that, being like, do you own or rent that property?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about selling that before you buy or something like that?
What percentage of your clients are from open houses that are still with you now? Do you know? Like, if you just like the logistics.
That's a tough one. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But I mean, I sort of, each client you can look at as a potential sort of tree of referrals and business. So
that's a good way of putting it.
they start at the top, at the point where you put the star on it at Christmas time or other holiday season,
Right.
and they're one deal.
The Kwanzaa tree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they can potentially, you do a really good job for them. That tree can just go down as they buy and sell continually over their life or career, presuming they do. Or it can also branch out, and maybe they refer you their brother, and their brother refers you that person, and then that tree just keeps getting wider and wider. And if I look back at some of the early deals I did, there's massive trees. Like I can look at one client that has been responsible for literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of income, and you really need to think about that. And that, because I think a mistake that a lot of people make is closing a deal, making sure their client's happy, and then forgetting about them. And
biggest mistake.
Your database is so valuable. Just talking to your clients now and then, calling them.
What's your method of doing that, Robin?
I send out cards to my clients, and I try to just run through my client list and contact them by call, text, email a couple of times a year. I send them a card on their birthday and usually text them on their birthday. I send out Christmas cards and then some other holiday cards as well occasionally. And then again, depending on what my business is looking like, sometimes I find other good excuses to get in touch with my clients.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Yeah.
I feel like Robin is so
it could
good
be
at
a
that.
lot better.
You're
there are a lot
good.
of people that do like sort of 10 touches a year with their database, and I definitely don't.
so hard.
I probably do a bare minimum of 2 and a maximum of about 4. And so it could be better, but it's a very important part of growing your business as your business gets bigger. But build those habits early on. Even if you've got 4 clients, call them. Talk to them.
Okay, so for the agents that have been licensed and been working for decades, what is the tip for you to not be burnt out? Because
am I the person to ask?
Yeah, you're gonna be the one to ask. Okay, you're here, buddy. How do you not get burnt out?
You need to manage your time well and make time for yourself. You need to be connected to your client. But you need to not take everything super personally. You need to be okay with a client buying and selling with you a couple of times and then choosing another agent. If you feel like you've failed in some significant way each time you don't get a listing presentation or you don't get a client, or a client moves on to somebody else, you're going to feel pretty shitty a lot of the time, because the way I describe this job is it's unlike many others. you go to a job interview every week or multiple times a week if you're successful. And they're not all going to say yes.
No.
And
Just so you
job
know-
interviews are like some of the most stressful things in people's lives.
Right.
And we're doing it literally multiple times a week. And for sure, we're not always getting positive answers. Hopefully more positive than negative. But at the same time, I don't think that the positive doesn't make you feel as good as the negative makes you feel bad.
I just lost a listing. I just lost one.
Morgan, even
I
you?
did. Listen, and I want
That
people to know
doesn't
that.
happen.
And she was a past client of mine, and it was rented, and then the rental agent referred her another agent, right? And they gave a significant reduction of their commission, and they asked me to come in. It's too bad. And she actually wrote me saying, I loved our relationship before, but they're willing to do some more for me. And I could have had that quick second to be like, oh, like, blah, she didn't choose me. But instead I was like, another one's going to come. And that day I got another call from a client that I hadn't even spoken to for about 5 years and said, hey, I want to list my place in Richmond. And it came that quick. But instead of dwelling on it, I think this is a good point for a lot of seasoned agents, is just know that that's okay. And you have to continue.
I think as our good friend Jay McInnes once put it to me, every no is that much closer to the next yes.
Yes. Yes.
Morgan, you remember that time that we both interviewed for the same listing?
townhouse?
The townhouse.
At King's Landing?
At King's Landing.
Yes.
Right.
I'll never forget it.
Morgan calls me and she's like, oh, I just got this call and I didn't get a listing and I really thought I would. And,
I vented him. I was venting to him.
And
I
I was like,
didn't get it.
And I was like, yeah, I didn't get a listing today too. I just got the call. And then I was like, wasn't like a townhouse on a beach, was it? And she's like, it was. And I was like, oh my God, we interviewed for the same one and neither of us got it. So we went and had a drink.
Yes, we did. Mark and Stacey got it, and they sold it.
They did. So fast
So
too.
fast too. They
the
were
Raymonds.
sad.
The Raymonds
But you
took
know
it
what?
from
They
us.
did. The Raymonds took it from us. But we could have dwelled on it. We could have, and you have to have
But
colleagues.
instead we had a laugh,
We had a laugh.
and vented to each other a little bit and had a joke and had a drink and moved on.
Yes.
It's good to have that amnesia when it comes to these things, because if you take it, I used to take things super personally as well, and kind of like it does get draining. Yeah, for sure.
And
Takes it away from you.
I still, that's something I still need to work on. I find myself very personally involved. I think I'm an emotionally sensitive person, and I find myself very personally involved with my clients. And when they're upset, even if it's for a ludicrous reason, I get upset. And if they're upset with me, even worse, even if it's completely unwarranted, even if it's because they don't like the outcome of not taking my advice, it upsets me. And that's something that I've, particularly over the last couple of years, have worked on a lot, because it is important to feel for your client's situation, but you cannot feel their situation. Feel for it, but don't feel the
I
whole
feel like
thing.
Rob.
All right. On that note, guys, thanks so much for listening to the Oakwyn podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate us 5 out of 5 on the podcast platform you're listening to it on. And if you're interested in learning about Oakwyn, feel free to reach out to us at oakwyn.com/join and type in the message box,
Pod 2021.
and you'll get a free piece of mystery swag.
Swag.
Okay,
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Part 2 coming up.
Thanks a lot for having me.